Okay, what I want to do now is to add in our references. So if you have downloaded the project files, you can just drag and drop your references one by one into the empty space in the viewport over here. So I got the front one selected and I just dragged it in. And I'm going to do the same and drag in the top one. So we should have two images in the viewport right now. And what I want to do is to just make sure to just select the image, go into this property and turn on opacity. What it does is that it just removes the jagged lines. For example, if I were to just turn it on and off, you'll see that there's definitely a difference. So let me just turn it on for this one as well. Okay, now we also need to just clear our rotations because it is being angled at the way we dragged it in. So let me just also delete this monkey by left clicking it and hitting delete so that's deleted. And I think I'll also delete the light and camera because we won't really need it until much later. What I will do though is to put these two into their own collection, which is like a folder. So I'm going to just press B to box select and just drag and select the both of these. Press M to move to a collection, hit new collection, and I'll just call this references. If I can actually type. And now we have these two in the references collection. And the reason why I put it in there is so that you can enable or disable the checkbox to just hide or unhide them pretty easily. So let me just rename them real quick. Ref underscore front. And this one will be ref underscore top. Now clear the rotation and location. So I'll hit Alt R to clear the rotation and Alt G to clear the location, which will just put it at the center of the world. So same thing with this. I'll press Alt R and Alt G to clear it. And I'm gonna start using transforms. We have our move, rotate, and scale, and I should probably show it on a normal object. So if you want to add in an object, just click on Shift A to add, or you can go to this menu, Mesh, and in this case I added the monkey. Now I always just make sure I press W so that I'm on this one, and I would use shortcuts to use the transforms. So in order to move, you would hit the G key while this is selected. So G to move, R to rotate, and if you right click, it'll just cancel the action. So G to move, R to rotate, and S to scale. Now, if you want to move in one direction, for example, on the x-axis, you would hit G and then you would hit X, and it'll just move on the red line, which is the x-axis. If I were to press G and Y, it'll move it on the y-axis, and G and Z will move it on the z-axis. And same thing with rotating and scaling. You can also press R to rotate and X to do it on the x-axis, R, Y, R, Z. And same thing with scaling. You can scale it on the X, scale it on the Z, or scale it on the Y. And another thing is that, especially with rotates, if you were to just rotate on an axis and hold control, you can actually rotate in 5-degree increments. That's also pretty useful. Another thing is you can also, while you're rotating, you can just press a number. For example, I can type in 45 and hit enter, and it will be rotated by exactly 45 degrees. And whenever you're done with a transform, you can see a box pop up at the bottom left, and you can even change it afterwards to whatever angle that you want. Now, another thing that I also like to use a lot is whenever I'm moving, I would hold a shift button, which will just move it a lot more slowly and more precisely. And that's really useful for just moving vertices and stuff like that as precisely as you can. So let me just press X to delete it. And now we're going to rotate this front image. So I'm just going to select the front one here. I'm going to hit R to rotate and X to just rotate on X, and I'll type in 90 so that when I were to hit numpad 1, it'll be facing us. So I also don't want it to be exactly in the middle, so I'll press G and Y to move it to the back a bit. Same thing with this. I'll select this and I'll move it underneath so that I'll press G and Z and just move it down. It doesn't matter how far you move it. Usually around this much is good enough. And now if I were to just add in maybe like a cylinder, so Shift A, add in a cylinder, and I were to go to numpad 1, you'll see that it's behind our object, which is exactly what we want. And whenever we were going to try to model, you would hit Z and go into wireframe so that you can see a wireframe of this. And since it's transparent, you can have a reference, which we can use to get our proportions right. So that's pretty much it for adding our references and our transforms. Okay, so I guess I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.